Did you know that Julius Caesar was once kidnapped by pirates who demanded 20 talents of silver for his release? Now that's what you call a real oops moment in history. Let's take a trip back in time to an era where Julius Caesar, one of the most audacious characters of history, strutted around. This guy was so audacious that when he was captured by pirates, he laughed at their ransom demand. Yes, you heard it right, he laughed. So here's the scoop. Julius Caesar, in his early 20s, was sailing the Aegean Sea when he was kidnapped by Cilician pirates. These pirates, thinking they had hit the jackpot, demanded a ransom of 20 talents of silver. Now, most people in that situation would be quaking in their sandals, but not our man Caesar. Instead of being scared, he was offended. He looked at these pirates straight in the eye and said, 20 talents, really? Do you know who I am? I'm Julius Caesar. He then insisted they ask for 50 talents of silver instead. Yes, you got it right, he negotiated his own ransom upwards. Who does that? Julius Caesar, that's who? But wait, there's more. During his captivity, Caesar treated the pirates more like his underlings than his captors. He would participate in their games, exercise with them, and even recite them his poetry. And when they didn't appreciate his work, he'd call them uncultured swine. Now here's the cherry on top. Caesar swore he would hunt them down and crucify them once he was free. The pirates, thinking it was all a big joke, laughed it off. Big mistake. Because once the ransom was paid and Caesar was free, that's exactly what he did. He hunted them down, seized their belongings, and had them crucified. So, next time you're held hostage by pirates, remember to negotiate your own ransom. It worked for Caesar. But just to be clear, we're not endorsing piracy or crucifixion here, just celebrating the audacity of one of history's most unforgettable characters. Stay tuned for more of history's biggest oops moments. Australia, a country known for its deadly creatures, once waged a war against emus. Yes, you heard that right, emus. Now let's set the stage. The year was 1932. The place, Western Australia. Farmers were having a tough time with emus, a bird species native to Australia that were running rampant on their lands. They were destroying crops and causing a ruckus. And these weren't just a handful of birds, we're talking about 20,000 emus, give or take a few. So what did the Australian government do? Did they try to negotiate a peace treaty with the emus or maybe set up some sort of bird sanctuary? Nope. They did what any reasonable government would do. They declared war. They called in the big guns, literally. The Australian military, armed with machine guns, were sent to the front lines of the battle against the emus. The plan was simple: curb the emu population and save the crops. But as with most things in life, things didn't go quite as planned. The emus, it seemed, were not just oversized chickens. They were speedy, agile, and surprisingly resilient. Despite their best efforts, the soldiers couldn't take down the emus as they had hoped. Bullets seemed to bounce off them, and they scattered in all directions, making it hard to aim. After a few weeks of this feathery fiasco, the government decided to throw in the towel. They had underestimated their opponents, and the emus had outsmarted them. The emus had won. It's a tale that's often told with a chuckle in Australia, a reminder of the time when man tried to wage a war against nature and lost. It's not every day that you hear about a war where the enemy was a flock of birds and the battlefield was a farm. And that's how emus won a war against humans. Talk about bird brain power. Ever had a bad day? Well, Thomas Midgley Jr. had a bad life. Now let's dive into the unfortunate tale of Thomas Midgley Jr., a man whose inventions were, let's say, less than eco-friendly. You see, Thomas was an American engineer with a knack for creating things that would later be deemed as environmental disasters. First up, he came up with the idea of leaded gasoline. Now I know what you're thinking. Hey, isn't lead that stuff that can cause serious health problems? And you'd be right. But back in the day, Thomas thought it was a great idea to put it in gasoline to prevent engine knocking. Little did he know he was setting the stage for years of lead pollution. But Thomas wasn't done yet. No, sir. He then went on to invent chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs. These bad boys were used in refrigerators, air conditioners, and aerosols and were great at their job. But like that friend who's fun at parties but wrecks your house, CFCs ended up causing a hole in the ozone layer. Talk about a party foul, right? Now you might think that's as bad as it gets. But for our friend Thomas, the universe had one more ironic twist up its sleeve. You see, later in life, Thomas contracted polio, which left him severely disabled. But being the inventor he was, he designed a system of pulleys and ropes to help him get out of bed. A great idea, right? Well, not exactly. One day, while using his pulley system, Thomas got tangled up and in a cruel twist of fate was strangled by his own invention. It's like something out of an Edgar Allan Poe story, but with a dash of slapstick comedy. So what's the moral of the story here? Well, I guess it's that sometimes your inventions can have unintended consequences, and sometimes those consequences can be far more serious than a simple oops moment. Remember folks, sometimes your inventions can come back to bite you, or in Midgley's case, strangle you. Imagine waking up thinking it's October 5th, but it's actually October 15th. Confused? So was everyone in 1582. Now let's take a trip down memory lane all the way back to the 16th century. Picture this. Pope Gregory XIII, the guy in the big hat, is sitting in his office in the Vatican scratching his head over a calendar. Not exactly the image you had in mind for a pope, right? I mean, come on, there are prayers to be said, sins to be absolved, but no. Gregory is busy playing around with dates. Why, you ask? Well, it turns out the old Julian calendar, which had been in use since the days of Julius Caesar, was slightly off. And when I say slightly, I mean by about 11 minutes per year. Doesn't sound like a big deal, right? But over centuries, those minutes added up, causing the calendar to drift from the solar year by about 10 days. So Pope Gregory, being the diligent man he was, decides to fix this. He commissions a new calendar, aptly named the Gregorian calendar. And here's where the plot thickens. To correct the drift, 10 days in October 1582 were just dropped. Poof, gone. The day after October 4th was October 15th. Can you imagine the chaos? People must have been like, wait, wasn't it Monday yesterday? How is it already the weekend? And what about the guy who was born on October 9th? Does he just not have a birthday that year? Or the couple celebrating their anniversary on October 12th? Do they just skip straight to the next year? You've got to hand it to Pope Gregory, though. It takes a special kind of audacity to mess with time and just erase 10 days from existence. But hey, at least we got a calendar that's slightly more accurate out of it. So, the next time you wake up confused about the date, just remember it could be worse. You could have lost 10 days. All right, let's recap, or should I say, let's rewind the tape on history's funniest bloopers. First off, we dove into history's biggest oops moment. Remember when the Austrian army attacked itself in the Battle of Caransebes? It's a classic case of friendly fire taken to a hilarious extreme. The army got so scrambled that they ended up in a full-scale fight with their own men. Talk about a communication breakdown. Then we hopped over to Australia for the Great Emu War. Yes, you heard it right, a war against birds. The Australian army, armed with machine guns, went head-to-head with 20,000 emus and lost. The emus, on the other hand, strutted off, feathers ruffled but dignity intact. Who knew emus could be such tough opponents? Next, we recounted the unfortunate tale of Thomas Midgley Jr., the man with a knack for creating environmental disasters. Not only did he introduce leaded gasoline wreaking havoc on our health, but he also gave us Freon, a major player in the depletion of the ozone layer. Midgley, it seems, had a talent for turning good intentions into global catastrophes. Then we visited the Vatican for the miscalculation of Pope Gregory XIII. His attempt to adjust the calendar ended up costing us 10 whole days. Imagine waking up thinking it's October 4th, only to find out it's actually October 15th. It's like a time traveler's worst nightmare, and there you have it, folks. A brief, hilarious glimpse into the past. Remember, history doesn't have to be boring. Just ask the emus. Remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.